Recently, I got a question, and I said I have to make this video. And the question was about why Kentucky Consular Center, KCC, when requesting the documents, usually are not requiring or requesting for education documentation, or they don't ask or require or request the documents on work experience. Why? When the KCC requested for the documents which are required are like passport which you use to apply, and if that passport has expired, you need to have the newer one. If you have lost the passport, you need to have the newer one with the evidence of the original passport you used to apply. So you will send the old passport you used to apply. If you have the newer one, both you said, so you need to have a passport. You need to have the, if you are married, marriage certificate, police clearance record. If you have been to prison record. If you have been to the military record. All this kind of documentation they need. But why they don't require or request education documentation, transcript, or they don't require or request the work documentation, work experience? That's why I usually separate the documents which are requested by KCC and the documents which are supposed to be used when you go to the visa interview. There are two different. Yes, all the documents required by KCC will be part of the documents you go with them when you go to the visa interview. But KCC doesn't ask you for those two documentations, education and work experiences. Those one are supposed to be asked by the US Embassy in your country. These are the reasons. Number one, the job of KCC is not to give the visa. Their job is to prepare you to go to the consular officer. Consular officer is the one determining the visa. Even the requirement to ask for the documentation is a recent process. Up to the DV 2018, there was no, DV 2018 going to DV 19, I think, 2019, there was no requirement of submitting the documents prior to KCC. You are showing up with the documents when you go to the visa interview. So they request this documentation just, I don't know why. I mean, they want to make sure that you are the one, whatever, but they are not going to make that decision. So for instance, even when you submit the documents, when during the application you say you don't have children, and now you have children, you submit the documents, KCC doesn't do anything. They say, okay. But when you show up at the US Embassy, that's when they want the documentation. US Embassy is the one determining if you have met the eligibility to be given the visa. KCC is to process. It's just, I'm giving an example, the process to go to heaven can be through accident, can be through you are sick, or someone done something to you and you collapse and die. That is to go to meet God, but the judgment is done by God. So KCC is just taking you to the judgment day, and the embassy consular officer will determine, because consular officer is from that particular country. If the embassy in Tanzania or in Kenya, they are in that country. If they want to verify information to call someone, they will make a local phone call to that particular person to cross-check certain information. So that's why it's their job, because they are the one to decide. If you give the documentation, they say, oh, we look at this is fake. They are the one to know that, because they are in that particular country. So KCC doesn't give the visa. Consular officer, the US Embassy, gives the visa. So they don't want to engage into the activity to decide, okay, when you applied, were you married? When this work experience, tell me about this one, because if they start going to a work experience, they will start asking the questions about this one, where is this job? All these kind of questions. They are not their job. So some people usually get upset. Why KCC they schedule me for the interview if they know that I don't meet the education requirement, or my work experience is not good enough? They do not know if you meet the requirement or not. So that's not their job, and they are not reviewing the form in the sense that they wanted to see if you wrote the exact 2 years of work experience. They are not reviewing that form in that sense. So this is the reason why the documents are required by the US Embassy. And because the US Embassy is in your country, so make sure that you have all the documentation from your country. If it's education, you need to have all of them. If it's work experience, make sure that you properly write them in the DSC 260, but at the same time you properly write them on the piece of paper the day you are going there, and you have the required documentation of education and required documentation to prove that you have those 2 years of work experience in the past 5 years. And all the best. Don't make a mistake of showing up with incorrect or lack of those documentations.